All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome into today's edition of In the Game. I am your host, Hustle, and as always, we're going to be diving into the world of NFT gaming. As today, I'm super excited to be joined by Karel, the co-founder of Treasure DAO. And Treasure DAO Magic has been one of the hottest projects in GameFi, not only, but also one of the leading ecosystems underneath Arbitrum. We're going to talk about that heating up narrative. We're going to talk about everything regarding Treasure DAO and the entire ecosystem. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. Like the video if you enjoy the show, if you're bullish on the future of NFT gaming, and if you're bullish on Treasure DAO, just like I am, and subscribe to the channel for more shows here every single day on Crypto Banter. And quick shout out to our sponsors here on In the Game. Bybit, one of the leading exchanges in all of crypto for all of your trading needs. NordVPN, always operate safely in crypto. Security is key, and never disclose your IP address if you don't have to. NordVPN down below. And SIDUS HEROES, the leading AAA intergalactic metaverse experience. You can check out their Xena Battle Royale mobile game now, which is live, and I'm really excited about the things coming out in their ecosystem as well. You can check out all the links in the description down below for our sponsors. And without further ado, let's go ahead and bring on our guest. Karel, how are you today?
Doing super well. Thanks for having me on here.
Awesome. I'm really excited to just dive into the ecosystem, and I've been really bullish on Magic and talking a lot about Treasure DAO. So it's just awesome to be able to talk straight with, the projects and the minds behind the projects themselves and just exactly what you guys are building. So anyone who might not be familiar with yourself or Treasure DAO, if you want to introduce yourself, maybe how you got into the industry, and then on top of that, in your own words, what is Treasure DAO?
Yeah, absolutely. So Karel, one of the co-founders at Treasure, leading all things operations. So wearing many hats, everything from marketing through to products, through to being the janitor and cleaning up the house when needed. My background is in computer science. Ended up actually dropping out, worked in the Bay Area for a bit, software engineer, product stuff. But really my kind of entry point into crypto and Web3, started in 2019, was dabbling here and there, which I think is the case for many people. But really 6 years prior to this, I was actually working in VC. So also wore a lot of hats. We were doing more stuff in fintech, but we had started down that track of, making, a few more crypto investments. We built a couple companies as well. And so really in the lead up to before I left, it was becoming and really just kind of heating up across the board. Have always wanted to, kind of get back to building. And so it was really a perfect storm for me to jump into Treasure. That was kind of circa 2021, really started out from the community, actually. So, this really the inception and genesis for Treasure was very much like a bottom up from the grassroots into kind of what we are today. And so kind of took up the helm, I'd say full-time in March of last year. How time flies, and I've never really looked back since. Gaming is has always been part of my life, and so kind of that infusion of gaming plus Web3 plus just building a startup and doing this in a way with so many talented people and other game builders is incredible. Treasure in a nutshell, I mean, we like to call ourselves the decentralized Nintendo. So what that really means is, it's kind of a decentralized gaming ecosystem. We work with a ton of game builders, studios, and we ourselves are a Web3 native publisher of games. So, everything is connected through Magic. This is our ecosystem token. We're fortunate. I think the earlier stat today was something like 343,000 holders, which is incredible. We have 15 plus games today. That's a combination of first and third party games we're creating, games we're partnering with, studios to build. And then everything is built on top of this like unified infrastructure. So how do we, at the end of the day, make life easier for, builders, but also create a, great experience for gamers and players to come into Treasure and experience everything we have to offer.
Yeah, for sure. I think that was a really good overview of the ecosystem and your background. And just with everything going on, before we dive headfirst into just the entire protocol and everything underneath Treasure DAO, let's talk about quickly the recent developments. We've seen the Unity partnership yesterday with like 11 blockchain projects, mainly based, obviously, gaming niche for onboarding these SDKs into Unity developers, tool stacks. Basically, we've seen Amazon come into the space as well recently with their Web3 gaming initiative. What's your thoughts on where the industry is right now? And do you see NFTs in video games eventually being something that is broad market, or do you see it always as maybe a subsector of the bigger gaming market?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, I think it's one, like, super bullish of a signal to see, I'd say the more kind of incumbents from Web2 coming into the space. I think it's in some ways overdue, but also it's inevitable that it's going to happen. I think for across the board, I mean, we're definitely going to see, much more of that sort of happening. I think we're just nascent of a space across the board, both in terms of games, the content and the IP. Like, it takes time to build quality stuff. And so we're really just at the finish line. The users, everyone here is, people who aren't afraid to take a bit of a risk, right? And, the experience is still not quite there yet. It's not super easy for people who are, not, aren't familiar with operating with kind of wallets, MetaMask, let alone a cold wallet. And so I think we're starting to scratch that surface, but really not quite there yet. I think, really across the board, we're going to see a bit more of that sort of happen. I think for Treasure and, all of the games that we're building on top of all the other ecosystems here, I think at some point, the naming for Web3 games is probably going to go away. We should just be games. It's similar to, it's really just another distribution channel and another kind of design space in which, games will kind of use and build on top of. And so we're probably going to see that shift over time. That said, though, I think it's an important sort of niche to carve out as well. And so thinking about just Treasure, you had in the earlier days with game publishers and studios, kind of that like desktop first approach. And then mobile came in, and there were folks who were afraid to kind of touch it or were a bit more kind of risk averse, and so it was unproven, still super early. And then you had folks who just jumped straight in and really created a name for themselves. You have the Supercells and folks like that. And so I think we're starting to see that happen in Web3. It'll probably accelerate in terms of how quickly folks will come on over, and it's a very different sort of medium. But I think it's super interesting to kind of play with and build within.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm kind of the thesis as well that I think it will eventually maybe be a part of most video games out there, but just maybe not in your face like it is today. Like you said,
Absolutely.
The whole crypto native side of it, it's got to go to where it just smacks you in the face. You got to buy this seed phrase that, and they're like, what the heck is this? So right. As long as we lower those barriers over time, digital collectibles will be something forever. So I think that if you put those collectibles in video games that you own, it's inevitable that technology would overtake the traditional measures of microtransactions in video games that we've seen for years and years. So let's talk about the traction and really the sentiment that is going on and what you guys are building at Treasure DAO. So as we're seeing some really impressive stats here, and first and foremost, we see the #1 gaming and NFT ecosystem on Arbitrum. So whenever you guys were, picking what platform, what blockchain potentially to integrate with and work with games, what led y'all to Arbitrum?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a consequence, I think, of both like timeline and where we kind of were. This was back when we launched in September 2021. So there's that component, the technology and kind of being part of Ethereum, we thought was really important. I won't go maybe too deep into all the tech stuff, but there's the security aspects which are really important. The team that we can kind of build, to really kind of bring this all to life. We saw sort of this necessity, absolutely, for kind of an L2 to be in place. So a layer 2 built on top of kind of the Ethereum kind of mainnet, and so having that was really important for gaming. And it's obvious now, but especially back when we had our bull run, and the gas was super high, speed was super slow on L1, and so having that experience was really not conducive to anything that was great of a user experience. So we were looking around, wanted a true L2 solution. We looked at Polygon, we looked at Optimism and others, and ultimately really landed on Arbitrum. I think it was about a month into when they launched. I think they launched like end end of August, of that year. And so, having that sort of really the understanding for their team, the ability for us to, kind of be a bit of the potential for a bigger fish in a growing pond, and so I think for us, like, it was a great decision in hindsight, just given everything that we've been able to kind of build on, and with the Arbitrum community and the off-chain labs team, we've been able to benefit quite a bit from it and really kind of carve out a niche. And, I think from a gaming perspective, an NFT perspective, like, it's been really us in a lot of ways being the ecosystem for a good amount of time. I think we're starting to see less, other players come in that are not necessarily part of Treasure, which I think is a really great thing overall. More games, more NFT projects, that will be great for just the entire Arbitrum ecosystem. If they want to join Treasure, that's amazing too. But I think having that, like, concentration of great developers and great players will be a good boon for everyone.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, the dominance on the chain so far has definitely shown, and this was just tweeted 2 days ago from Nansen, as Treasure DAO is the most dominant NFT and gaming ecosystem on Arbitrum. Over 100,000 unique players engaged in the ecosystem. Also accounts for over 95% of all transactions for NFTs and gaming on Arbitrum, with 267 million in volume since its inception. So obviously y'all saw that lane and I mean, Arbitrum, I think the narrative's heating up like crazy right now, especially post Blur. Everyone kind of is looking forward to that Arbitrum whenever that time period comes. But I think now, whenever you're looking into the ecosystem, in my opinion, Treasure DAO Magic has to be like the top project in my lens. And I know how many games in-house are on the platform now.
We have 15. And so this represents games that you can actually play, touch, interact with, collect. There are few and a growing amount that don't actually require anything. And, I think that's a marked shift in terms of how, kind of gaming and Web3 has really evolved. You don't have to buy an expensive asset to participate. Things should be free to play and try. And if you do want to, take them out of the game, that's when things, can kind of turn into, what you might be used to. So, definitely give the games a try, and happy to talk, through some of them. You got some good titles up on screen.
Yeah, I know the Beacon's gotten a lot of good sentiment on Twitter. I've seen it quite a bit. 𝗏𝗏versus community is like super loyal and very engaging on Twitter. And then one that's recently kind of launched, I believe, was 𝗏𝗏𝗽𝗏, right?
Yeah, 𝗏𝗏𝗽𝗏, they've actually been around since the early days of Treasure, but in terms of their actual game, yeah, they've been building for quite a while. They had their kind of private sort of closed alpha, late last year, but it kind of opened up a little bit more, in February. And yeah, I mean, that's something you can jump in, give it a go. We do have a few more as well. I think around Christmas we announced something called 𝗪𝗪. They are effectively a kind of creature collecting game, and they have kind of a Pokemon like experience, a handful of kind of beast brawler games, and then a MMO title that's in the works as well. And they're moving into their alpha very soon. You have Bitmates, which we announced, I think, was it last month, but they're building an MMO. So if you're a big fan of a kind of WoW like experience, World of Warcraft, that could be a good game for you as well.
Awesome. Yeah, there's a very big definite variety in the stack of games now. And then yeah, I believe on the platform it says at the top about 20 plus 26 integrated games.
Yeah, so there's different levels of integration, but I'd say ones that are like very kind of integrated. They're using Magic. They're
Got it. Those are the main ones on the platform.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. And what are you seeing from projects? Why are they wanting to build on Arbitrum too? Whenever a game comes to you and wants to kind of join Treasure DAO, what's their sentiment on obviously the Arbitrum network and the future of GameFi there?
Yeah, I mean, I think Arbitrum and like we're super biased, obviously, having been here for some time and building here. I mean, that said, though, I think at the end of the day, there are some clear kind of technology winners, but in a similar way that you have Amazon AWS Google Cloud, it's really technology that you build upon. I think what really leads you to join one of them is really the kind of benefits and perks from, whether it's the just like, network effects from being there are users there are players there's liquidity, that's super important as well. And, a really high quality, group of developers. And so I think with Arbitrum, they've really been able to attract a lot of that in a way that has been super organic. As there's no token. And so, but that said, they still dominate really the charts across the board in a lot of ways from a DeFi perspective, but, in other ways as well. And so I think it is really due to a lot of, factors that lead into that. I think for us, like, why folks have been coming into Treasure, really, like a lot of them have been after kind of three things, right? It's like distribution and the ability for them to acquire users. It's, the ability for them to create, more immersive experiences for their players. And then it's, gaining access to tooling and things that like can really help them, move faster, ship their products and really focus on the core piece of it, which is building a game. And so, it's not necessarily about the amount of money we can give them as a grant per se, but really kind of focus on like how we can really help them and be, kind of on the ground level with them.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's awesome the services and tools that Treasure does offer these games, as we're seeing here, the Builders program, which is kind of like an incubator and an accelerator, like you just mentioned, when a game wants to come and build underneath Treasure and kind of wants that instant community, right? That instant user base potentially. It's kind of already got a broader community behind it, right? That it can tap into potentially and have players join their games. And then you have the distribution aspect. Everyone wants distribution. And everyone's fighting to become the Steam of the crypto gaming world, right? And I don't think it's been taken yet. There's not enough platforms with enough games live, I don't think, to judge that yet, right? So that race is still wide open, and it looks like with the distribution front, you guys are ahead of the curve with the amount of live games you have. And then what is proof of play? That is the one here that if I had to want to hear more about, because I mean, infrastructure, cross-game resources, and interoperability, it goes very hand in hand with the ecosystem. But what is the proof of play?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think part of, being and working in kind of Web3, you take away your real life identity and you're represented by a wallet address, right? And in a lot of ways, like it adds quite a bit of freedom, lets you really take on that pseudonym if that's what you're after. But having this, kind of on-chain record of like what follows you, like what you've done in the space, what you've achieved, and having this proof of play, the games that you've played, the accomplishments that you've achieved in those games, the kind of reputation that you're building through contributions that, you've been making to DAOs, you've been voting, you've been creating stuff, content, building tooling, and all that, sort of good stuff, having that sort of feed into something that kind of informs you as a player, as a kind of person on the blockchain, but also kind of beyond that. So if we think about this in the context of Treasure, and it kind of ties in with like what you were saying earlier, I think there's just having this like context of like who you actually are as you go from game to game. And so being kind of situated within Treasure, it's kind of like that Steam profile that you might have. You know what your library of games are, what you play, you've earned all of these badges and achievements, but having this kind of, really sit on chain as like a permanent sort of record of like your accomplishments is something that will be super powerful. And so we're excited about sort of that piece to bring to life, and having that sort of really the connective tissue, which I think is unique for Treasure, is Magic tying everything together, this like proof of play tying everything together in a way that games that are a bit more siloed right now, like you pick a chain, call it Polygon, Immutable, even Arbitrum, if you're not part of a like underlying ecosystem, you kind of build and play in isolation. You might have collaborations that happen and partnerships, but you aren't really kind of thinking about things in a collaborative or common sort of way. Whereas like when you're joining Treasure, everything's linked by Magic, you're using the same token. And then you also have really these like game communities that end up being like aggregated together. So you just have like a mega community that is, kind of playing together, enjoying together.
Yeah, I think that's a huge strength. And when it comes to gaming, especially, right? I mean, what people don't consider is they think of the active users and players that Call of Duty has, but in its purest form, even if the game chat gets toxic sometimes, it's a community, right? Like the player base of a game is a community. So it also does go hand in hand with the Web3 technology, regardless of what's said in a team deathmatch lobby. You never know, but it still is a community, right? So I think it's first and foremost. And the community doesn't have the chance to have inputs and have these different communications with teams, reach out to the CEO of a company, right? You can't get the attention of the CEO of Activision Blizzard, right? So Web3 does provide just so much ground level communication with your community, which I think is huge to kind of put out in front what you're building for the future. And speaking of the future, like what are some of the things in the ecosystem that you're most excited about? Obviously, the eventual Arbitrum launch, that'll bring a lot of sentiment, I think, across every ecosystem project that's, you know, at the top underneath that Arbitrum ecosystem. But what are some maybe key stuff coming up or some things you're excited about in the ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean the one word I think is hyper growth. You know, and this is in a lot of different ways. You know, we spent the first year kind of setting the foundation for a lot of this stuff, and you know the thruster packs have been equipped, and you know we're off to the races. So it's kind of threefold, right? It's like growth of games. You know, we have a number of them that are and building a game takes time. The ones that we've announced, you know, they've either launched V1 and are moving on to their like much more immersive kind of version that is launching very soon. So we have a cohort that, you know, is kind of in that bucket, right? You have games like 𝗪𝗏, which I mentioned. You know, you have games like Knights of the Aether. They're going into a free-to-play sort of game very soon. Bitmates coming up in March, and many others. You know, you have, and then you have a second cohort, which is brand new games that we've been spending a ton of time, you know, bringing them over to Treasure and Arbitrum. Some of them have launched elsewhere and, you know, are not maybe being serviced too well. Some of them are brand new and, you know, have been, you know, have tons of experience from Web2 and are coming over to Web3 and building something brand new. So we're excited to hopefully announce them very soon. So that's a big piece. The growth of players. I mean, you know, we have very much been focused on kind of like the Web3, like early adopters. We're hopeful that, you know, as we bring on like great, you know, games, really the like hits of Treasure, in the same way that you know, Nintendo has a Mario and Pokemon. We've been really focused on like what are these like great IP plays that we can kind of bring to life. But having that kind of, you know, really pave the way for the mass market to come on over is a big piece. And then really that whole kind of growth of the product stack, right? And you know, all the things that we're doing to bring that like proof of play to life and bring, you know, that player experience and builder experience, you know, into something that's, you know, much more well-rounded, immersive, you know, and really kind of helps them, you know, hit the ground running. So it's all of those three things, and you know, I'm particularly excited about people who know me know I love the beacon, and you know, they've been spending a ton of time, you know, working towards, you know, kind of going from what is more of a prototype right now into something that's a bit more fulsome. If you've played something like a Hades or, you know, Binding of Isaac, like that, you know, having a gameplay like that that is also social will be super cool. And so that's coming down the pike as well.
Yeah, I'd feed off the IP thing, right? People didn't, I mean, you fall in love with Pokemon, but you more like Charmander and Pikachu than, you know, just Pokemon, right? You fall in love with the characters inside the worlds. That's where the real IP and the attachment is. I really think only a few gaming companies and NFT brands in the NFT space, even broader, utilize their IP to their advantages or are building that IP with that in mind. So I love that. And then a couple questions in the chat. I think we're looking at one right now in a way, kind of like a dungeon crawler RPG. Are there going to be any MMO RPG games on Treasure?
Yeah, absolutely. So Bitmates was the one that I mentioned. So yeah, we're super excited about that one. You know, questing, crafting, you know, bunch of mini games, social, walking around with your friends. I mean, you know, they have a great Twitter page and devlog, and you can see all their progress. And you know, month to month they've been shipping like mad, and so we're excited to see that go live. They actually have a playable beta right now. where you can hop in with your friends if you own a bitmate and start to play.
Yeah, it's awesome that these ecosystem games are live. It's so rare. It's like a breath of fresh air, in my opinion. As someone, I just cover the space every single day, and it's like frustrating. It's like, yeah, sure, there's a lot of products coming. It's like, I'd love to play the games that I have assets for now, but it's gonna, who knows how long it's gonna be in some of these ecosystems. So I do love that most of the games you guys are putting forward are playable. Like, why not? Like, we need to push games and push products that are playable. So a big applause to that the ecosystem, not only with Arbitrum, I feel like being, I would still call it relative. I mean, a new chain, a new narrative. Yeah, the token hasn't even launched yet. So, I mean, I think with the youth of Arbitrum, I think it's super impressive everything that you've built over at Treasure DAO so far. And with, you know, with the Magic token, like over 300,000 holders, you said?
Yep, absolutely, of the Magic token, and yeah, tons more, kind of playing all of our games every day. And you know, I think even just looking at everyone kind of coming across over to Treasure, be it players, be it builders, it's exciting to have you all come and be part of the ride.
Absolutely. So anyone who wants to get involved with Treasure DAO, the ecosystem, maybe hop into some of the games or just follow for more, where can they find more?
Yeah, absolutely. Treasure_DAO at for Twitter. You know, you can check out our website, 𝗕𝗫.lol, which is I think the best domain. Is a good spot as well. I'm personally on Twitter primarily, so just 0x_Karel, Karel. But yeah, I mean, you know, I'd say from there, all of the games, you know, you have your pick. We'll have many more coming down as well. And so, you know, you can, if you are a fan of roguelikes, you know, MMOs, strategy games, we're hopeful and, you know, to have more mobile games, MOBAs, battle royales, FPSs, you know, all of that is in the pipeline for us to try to bring on over. So excited to share more once we get there.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's going to be a lot of ongoing developments in the ecosystem as things are really just getting started, but they've gotten started off really hot, I feel like, underneath the Arbitrum narrative. And I'm stoked to see what comes out of Treasure DAO in the future. More games adopting to Arbitrum and by nature adopting to the biggest gaming community underneath that umbrella, which is Magic Treasure DAO. So Karel, thank you so much for joining me. I know y'all are super busy building out and pushing forward tons of new games, probably talking to so many games that want to join Treasure DAO at this point too. So thank you for taking about a half hour out of your time and really just spilling the alpha on what's to come and everything inside the ecosystem. So thank you so much again. And guys, like the video down below if you enjoyed the show, if you're bullish on Treasure DAO, just like I am, and subscribe to the channel for more every single day here on Crypto Banter. And Karel, thank you again.
Amazing. Thanks so much.
Yeah, have a good rest of your day. And chat, I will see you guys at the end of the week on Friday to close out the week. And as always, play well, my friends.